Good evening, coffee supporters. I hope you're doing well. It's been a bit tumultuous, hasn't it? I haven't done one of these since Booker. I'll be honest, like everyone else who reads all 13 books for Booker, I've just had to take some time out, and I've started reading a few literary fiction, but I need a bit of a palate cleanser. So I've decided to read some sci-fi and fantasy, some that I've already read before that I really like that I'll put onto the main channel, but I've read the ever-requested 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. The 5th season. Oh, it was bad. I don't really know how to explain how absolutely boring. So the 5th season is the first in the Broken Earth trilogy. Don't worry, I'm not going to be carrying on with this season. Jemisin has blurred the line between science fiction and fantasy to create this sci-fi series. But fantasy, I feel, has the trope of let's walk and talk for a really long time. The first part of this book up until the interval is mostly just people walking around talking about rocks. There is a reason for it. So within this universe there is a planet that experiences a 5th season, which is pretty much apocalyptic. While there have been many 5th seasons, Jemisin states right at the beginning that this is the end for the stillness being like Pangea for Earth. On the stillness there are various races, and the one that you focus on mostly are the Origins. The Origins are looked down upon, and there is a derogatory term for them, the Roggers. They practice orogeny, which basically means that they can manipulate the earth underneath them. They can tap into the earth to gain powers. The first Rogger that we are introduced to is Essen, and she has come home and seen that her child has been beaten up by the father. Their son is now dead. Essen understands that the reason why the father killed their small baby child was that the child was seen to have powers of orogeny. Therefore, if there's one Rogger in the family, it's come from somewhere, and if it's not him, it's come from her. Naturally, he takes their daughter away, and Essen's journey is to find her daughter. As it's now established that orogeny is hereditary, Essen then, in her state of grief and despair, causes an earthquake within her town, which offsets a climatic end for the town, but is therefore expelled. She spends many hours on the road, meets a boy called Hoa, and keeps talking about rocks for a really long time. Before we talk about the two other characters that make up the trio of narratives, people know the 5th season for being narrated in the second person. Kinda. Only Essen's perspective is relayed in the second person. Why? No idea. The other two narratives of Damaya and Cyanit are just standard third person. Damaya's story has a very strong parallel to the start of Essen, where Damaya's parents find that she has orogeny and are forced to kill her, but they can't go through with it. Therefore, they bring in the stupidly named Schaffer Guardian Warrant, who will take her to the Fulcrum. Now, the Fulcrum is like a government building that houses Roggers who use their powers, who use and manipulate their powers in a controlled way. It's like the safe space for the Roggers. As far as I'm willing to go with Damaya, let's talk about Cyanite. Now, Cyanite is from the Fulcrum. She's walking with her partner, Alabaster, and they're predominantly at the beginning trying to give us a picture of what is happening outside the Fulcrum and how the Fulcrum are being used. We come across nodes where there are Roggers who have been lobotomized. Therefore, their powers are being controlled to the absolute utmost by the government. Jemisin's prerogative, I would say, throughout the 5th season is just to give us setup. And I think the writing's really rocky at times. I just come up with that. That was really good. That was really good, I thought. Please don't unsubscribe. Like with fantasy and sci-fi, some people have to come up with their own terms. And Jemisin uses profanity in a very interesting way, where rather than swear words, she uses the words earth and rust. I will laugh till kingdom come when Kendall and Kylie Jenner used the term stratosphere to mean, wow, that's really cool. And if I will laugh at this, I will laugh at Jemisin. I will review this one day, but 4 chapters was too painful. But aside from the language, let's talk about the action. So this is categorized as grimdark, which I have done many Google searches, and that's what fantasy people call a book that is grim and also dark. Very inventive. The action here is grim and dark. It gets very bloody, like, very quickly. And when I mean very quickly, I mean, like, efficient. It's, like, done on the page. It's like, we're talking about rocks a bit more, and they keep on walking. I don't know why fantasy writers have to have people walk and talk about the environment. Lord of the Rings does it. The Wheel of Time does it. Game of Thrones does it. Even one of my favourite works, Left Hand of Darkness, there is a lot of time when Gimli Eye is walking through the tundra talking about how cold it is. I don't need to know any of this. It's a lot of walking and it's a lot of rocks. And if that tickles your pickle, then by gosh, you're going to have an absolute whale of a time with this. I would imagine it does get better. Really, I did think about it, just give it up halfway through. Once I got to the interval, which is like 180 pages in, I was like, I think I know what this is. Which is a shame, because the 5th season, when people talk about it, and when you read the synopsis on the back, it doesn't give you anything. And I didn't know the story at all. So it wasn't as if I was going into this, like, knowing what was going to happen. It was just people were saying, you should read it, it's really good. I didn't get that. I got walking and rocks. And I didn't need that in my life.